Hey folks, so now that we have a little scene with our character that can move around and perform various actions, let's figure out how we're going to add the customizable pieces to this guy. So, like hair and clothes. First, let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to add the hair. We're going to enable the hair piece for now. We see that, it's currently just a sprite renderer pointing to a field here in our sprite sheet. Okay, so to do this, first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a sprite manager to this. Okay, and once we added the sprite manager, we're going to disable billboarding. And since this guy is actually, since all of these since all of these configurable pieces of sprites are children of this root sprite manager, we're going to go ahead and drag this sprite manager into the root sprite manager field of the children. So we select the child, click on this, drag him over here. So it made our little hair piece disappear because now it's being fully managed, but these things are empty. So they don't have any fields. And we don't really want to go through and do all of that work again to set all the fields and all the states. What we're going to do is we're going to use some more SpriteMan tools that'll make this very easy for us. So we did all the hard work for, our main body component here. That was the first part that we kind of had to do manually. But the rest of it is going to be a little bit easier. So first we're going to use the Save SpriteMan State tool. First we drag, so because we've completed the sprite manager for our body, we're going to drag that here into the sprite manager field of this tool. We're going to choose a folder. We're going to stick with the sprites folder for now. We're going to say save state. And what did that do? That created this sprite manager state here in our folder, in our project folder. And this is actually another scriptable object that simply saves all of the settings for a sprite manager. So it'll save the directions, the reflection mode, billboarding feature, and all of the frames that were set for all of the actions, animations, states. Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and create a new folder so that we keep all that stuff in a separate folder. States. Track this guy in that states folder. We're going to name him body male so that he kind of matches everything else. Body male. And this isn't required by any means, but it just keeps things kind of, lined up and named the same thing wherever possible to make it easy to switch between the different types of objects here. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to use another tool called Convert Sprite Sheet to SpriteMan State. Okay, so this SpriteMan State is fully connected, but he's fully connected to the body sprites. We need to create a new SpriteMan State for some of these other sprites, or some of these other sprite sheets. And we do that by using this current SpriteMan state that we generated for the body. And now we can use, let's go ahead and do the hair. We're going to choose hair. And now with our new folder, we're going to choose our new folder as well as the output folder. Now when we click generate SpriteMan state, boom, all of a sudden we have a full SpriteMan state for hair. It's all hooked up completely into the state. And the last piece that we need to do is to use this last tool here, load SpriteMan state, to load it into our little head SpriteMan manager. So let's find the state. Well, okay, so first is the source. The source is going to be the head of hair state that we created in our project. Next is going to be the target, the thing that we want to load it into. So it's going to be our character's head sprite manager. Because we added the sprite manager, now we can drag it into here. And we say, okay, over here, load state. Boom, our guy has loaded all of these states, and he has a full head of hair. We close this window, focus on him. Now we see that he has a full head of hair, and all of the actions are hopefully going to work here as well. So when we go to, well, let's go ahead and hit play first. Okay, full head of hair, he's walking, he's jumping, everything's working. Everything is animating for all of the actions. When we hit stop and we go to the animation mode of this character, the animation window, and click on some of these different, some of these other animations, we go ahead and preview the animation. Okay, everything looks good for hurt. We saw that jump worked, slash was working. We can just test it again in the scene view as well, like so. Let's see thrust. Yep, so the hair is in all the right places when he's performing all of his actions. Let's go ahead and test cast as well. And there it is. So that's how you use the SpriteMan tools to make this process a whole lot easier. And now in the paid version of SpriteMan, there is also an extra feature that makes this even less manual, called a SpriteMan state batch. We're gonna create one of these guys here. We're gonna drag him into our states folder. From the generated folder, it always generates these things in a generated folder. And you know, these things are named differently. So even though he still looks yellow, he says SpriteMan state batch. And we're gonna say body batch or whatever okay, body parts, we can do that. Let's name this guy body parts too. Except this one's a SpriteMan state batch. And it follows the same principle as our other batch for sprite sheets, but this one is for generating SpriteMan states. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the SpriteMan state batch into, okay, what does that say? Sprite manager state, okay. Our body male, we're going to drag that into this slot. And our targets, these targets are going to be sprite sheets, I believe. Let's see if this works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we select all of these. Oh, wait. Okay, we have to lock our inspector before we do that. Drag these into targets. It's going to process all of these sprites. And our output folder is going to be here. So now we've configured this guy. We can reuse him whenever we'd like. We can reprocess all of the body parts whenever we need to. And let's see if it actually creates copies or recreates these. Okay. So it looks like for, you know, for the ones that we had existing already, it created some copies. We can go ahead and delete these. But basically, anytime you need to recreate your states, you can, for the most part, kind of just get them recreated and then add them again to your objects that you need to work with. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and load some more body parts. We're going to go and enable torso, legs, and feet. And of course, we're going to see that, when he's sideways, these things aren't working and they're not loaded because first they don't even have any sprite managers on them. But what we're going to do is we're going to add sprite manager to these components. We're going to set their root as well. Add script sprite manager. Their root sprite manager, feet. Like so. And next we're going to use the tool to load our states. So loading SpriteMan states we've batched and generated a bunch of SpriteMan states. Let's go ahead and do the torso. The torso needs to be, let's say, the shirt. And that one goes on the torso sprite manager. Load state, there we go. We see the shirt appears now. And it's correct. Next, we're just going to keep using this tool for configuring different body parts for now. So for legs, we're going to use the pants, like so, load. And for feet, we're going to add the shoes. And there we go. Now we have our fully customizable character that we've kind of built in our scene. So one of the things that we can do next is kind of just create a prefab of this guy. We're going to go ahead and create the prefab here in our root customizable folder because this is our character's name and we can have the prefab in here. Okay, and then let's say that we duplicate him in the scene. What we want to do is maybe turn off the player controller for this other character. Okay. Like so. And it looked like he was doing something. Oh, maybe he was in a jumping pose or something. So that's because... Oh, well, maybe when we look at the animator... by default, we should have is grounded enabled because he's standing on the ground. So this is a setting that I've now applied to the entire scene. Basically, anybody that uses this animator is going to start with is grounded as true. Let's hit play again. There we go. So now he's just standing in place. We can kind of push this little guy around. Let's go ahead and customize his clothes as well. So now we're going to set, let's see, using the tools window again, load sprite manager state. On his torso, we're going to add, this is like a plate mail, golden mail. Okay, so this guy's going to be our little guard, our little knight. Golden armor knight. Let's see, the next one is legs. Legs is this. Adding it to those legs. Okay. Feet. So, feet. Load. And there he is. So now, what we can do, again, some sort of fighter, knight fighter. Now we can create a variant a prefab variant. So you can kind of preset these in your scenes with different clothes and just have them around to kind of use in different scenes. So this is one option that you can kind of play around with. And now we've made customizable characters this way. And I think in the next video we'll talk about how to do this through scripts at runtime and kind of make things customizable at runtime.